Micro Motor Madness. Scale down, drive big.
Welcome to Micro Crawler Madness. Unleash the power of the Mini. Today we're excited to present the full custom build of a 1/24 scale Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon crawler. This isn't just any mini crawler, this is the first ever 2-speed gearbox MiniZ 4x4, making it a unique and highly capable off-road machine. Body and chassis, combining the best of both worlds, Kyosho Mini-Z and Hobby Plus CR24. We started with the incredibly detailed Kyosho Mini-Z 4x4 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon body. This body is known for its stunning realism and high-quality craftsmanship. For the chassis and suspension links, we used components from the Hobby Plus CR24, renowned for its durability, performance, and for the affordable price and availability of these parts. Drivetrain. Revolutionary drivetrain. Hobby Plus T-Hunter Evo 2-speed gearbox. To enhance performance, we integrated the Hobby Plus T-Hunter Evo 2-speed gearbox. This addition gives our mini crawler unmatched versatility and power, allowing it to tackle any terrain with ease. Switching between high and low gears provides both speed and torque, essential for different crawling scenarios. Build process. Building from scratch, a labor of love. This build was meticulously crafted from scratch by the Micro Motor Madness team. Every component was carefully selected and assembled to ensure optimal performance and aesthetics. Our goal was to create a crawler that not only looks great, but also outperforms others in its class. Performance and capability. More than just looks, enhanced performance and capability. The combination of the detailed Kyosho Mini-Z body and the robust Hobby Plus CR24 chassis results in a crawler that looks as good as it performs. The 2-speed gearbox allows for smooth transitions between different driving conditions, providing both power and precision. Whether it's tackling rough trails or climbing steep inclines, this mini crawler can handle it all, unique and exclusive. A unique build, exclusively from Micro Motor Madness. You won't find this incredible crawler in stores. It's a one-of-a-kind build that you can only achieve by building it yourself. At Micro Motor Madness, we specialize in creating unique and high-performance RC models that stand out from the rest. Join the madness. Build your own custom crawler. We hope you will enjoy this deep dive into our custom Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon crawler. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more amazing builds and RC adventures. Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know what you think of this unique 1/24 scale crawler. Thanks for watching, and remember, if you can dream it, you can build it with Micro Motor Madness. Micro Motor Madness, pushing the limits of RC creativity and performance. Before starting the build of our Jeep, we will present the parts that we will use for our project by giving the price of each part used. Finally, we will give an estimate of the total cost of the crawler. MiniZ 4x4 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon with all body accessory parts, including bumpers and bumper mounts, screws, and spare tire with its mount, for a price of $55.99. Hobby Plus T-Hunter 2-speed gearbox kit, including the shifting servo with mount and servo horn, the gearbox with full metal gearing and 130 motor, for a price of $28.99. Hobby Plus CR24 stock body and bumpers mount parts, for a price of $2.73. Hobby Plus CR24 axle metal gear set, for a price of $16.99. Hobby Plus CR24 ball stud set, for a price of $4.62. Injora aluminum shocks, 45mm oil filled for FCX24. We are not going to use this Cr-24 steel drive shaft because the length doesn't fit with the 2-speed gearbox. Cr-24 stock suspension links for a price of $2.02, FMS2S battery for a price of $7.82, Cr-24 steel chassis rail set for a price of $4.07, Cr-24 bumper and electronics mount set for a price of $2.73. We start our assembly with the Hobby chassis plus Cr-24. The choice of this chassis is well studied because it is exactly the same as the Cr-18, but shorter, and all the parts of the Hobby Plus models can be mounted on it, which allows the choice of the 2-speed gearbox of the Evo. The Cr-24 has a wheelbase of 120 millimeters like the Jeep Mini-Z, which allows the use of the axles and link suspension of Cr-24. However, the body measures 165 millimeters and the chassis measures 170 millimeters, which requires cutting the chassis rails by 5 millimeters. The body of the Jeep is very short at the front because of the short hood. To cut the 5 millimeters of the chassis rails, I start by limiting the part to be cut using adhesive tape to be able to make a precise cut. I don't have a fancy electric saw for cutting. However, the principle of the hobby is to achieve your goals using whatever is available. After cutting, I file the sides of the rails to round them and smooth them, which prevents them from being sharp. Following the rail smoothing session, it is very important to clean the work surface, the instruments, and the rails. This helps to avoid inhaling small metal particles. I do this using wet wipes. Before I start installing the running gear onto the chassis, I do a bit of detailing by painting the edges of the rails with a black paint pen, or you can use a Sharpie instead. The installation of the skid plate transmission is done directly as if it was designed to be installed on this chassis. We opted for the Hobby Plus T-Hunter Evo Gearbox kit because the installation of the servo is done vertically. Actually, T-Hunter shifting gear servo is mounted on the body using a long shift lever, unlike the Rock Van Evo, whose servo is mounted on the chassis using a shorter shift lever. It's impossible to install the Rock Van servo mount on our Cr-24 short chassis, which does not have the fixing points available on the Cr-18 chassis. However, even for the T-Hunter Evo Gearbox kit, it is necessary to do a little manufacturing to allow its installation. For this purpose, I first made a paper template for mounting the servo using the fixing points available on the chassis. There are 4 fixing points possible, 2 fixing points shared with the transmission skid plate, and 2 other points shared with the battery holder tray. A 4-point attachment provides strength and stability. For the manufacture of this DIY servo mount, I used a sheet of ABS plastic, which I pre-cut following the paper template, and I folded the ABS sheet to give it the desired shape by heating the plastic. Finally, I put a few stickers for the beauty of the thing. This video is a bit long. It is currently difficult for us to reduce the length while showing the entire process of building this crawler. We know how to build cars, but not yet how to edit videos. We will gradually improve in this exercise. We observe on YouTube certain people who buy a car and who start to make unboxing videos of pairs of shocks or tires. For them, the objective is not the hobby, but the desire to start a YouTube channel, thinking that RC is a niche from which they can make a living. Also, other channels who move away from the hobby and become commercial representatives of manufacturers in their channel is no longer about the RC, and transform their channel into some brand showcase. Don't get me wrong, we are not against sponsorship, but we are in the world of RC by passion, and our passion has invaded us for years. And today we have decided to share our passion with our hobbyist community, and also to promote this passion among new people who are interested from afar without daring to take the step. For sponsors, it is enough to show their car and their products during the realization of our build projects. We are the consumers, our videos are for us, and made with their products that we install and test. Please note that we are a small channel and that we currently have no sponsors, and that all the parts were purchased are to satisfy our passion. The video and its publication is a secondary objective. We already advertise the brands by using and testing their products in our videos. No need to do more, in which case, we lose the neutrality of our judgment, thus misleading our viewers. This is our opinion, and it only involves us. It's too easy to make assembly videos of expensive parts that plug and play on a stock rig. Anyone can do that. The hobby and passion of RC is not that. It is more around DIY, creation from scratch, creation that start from idea to something unique that you can enjoy. It's also about the satisfaction that comes from seeing a concept work. And remember what we said in the beginning of this video, if you can dream it, you can build it. In this kit, purchased at $2.73, there is a front and rear bumper. No need for those, a battery tray, a plastic mount shared between the ESC and the steering servo that mount on the chassis. For our build, we are going to use only the battery tray. For the ESC, we are going to make a custom mount because there is no room because of the transmission and the big motor. And for the steering servo, we will mount it on the front axle in DIY way like always. At the top of the shifting servo mount, I left a rectangular opening for the shifter lever to pass through and to allow the servo horn to move without binding. On the side, I cut a triangular opening, which allows you to see what we are doing. When you connect the shifter lever to the transmission, it also allows you to see the shifting mechanism in action. The geometric shapes of the openings are not a constraint. It is just for the cemetery and the aesthetic. Otherwise, you can make a round hole regardless. The main thing is to avoid any friction of the servo horn during the passages of the gears. For the shifting servo, I bent the ABS plastic on two sides to have fixing points that align with those of the servo motor. Despite this, and after tightening, I reinforced it by tightening the servo motor using a battery strap. The suspension links with the ball stud are stock Cr-24 parts, and installation goes straight forward. A few days later, the build continues. Cr-24 front steering hub for a price of $2.53. Cr-24 plastic diff covers. The price for two set is $4.44. Cr-24 axles metal gear set. The stock ones are plastic and they are not designed to handle a 2-speed gearbox. With a full metal gear with 130 motor, they will strip right away. So this upgrade part is necessary and not a luxury. This axles metal gear set goes for $16.99. Before installing the axles, I start by removing all the bushings delivered with the parts to replace them with bearings, except for the front differential. The pin at the end of the front axle does not allow us to push in the bearing. It's possible to press it on one a little bit would allow the bearing to find its way in the axle. However, believe my experience, very quickly after doing this, we noticed that the pin no longer holds in place, which leads to blockages at the CVD level. So it's better to stick to the bushings here, because the game is not worth the effort. I did not open the transmission to replace its bushings, but I know from fact that she's well lubricated. For the bearings, I will wait until something breaks in the transmission. And believe me, it will happen, and the first weak piece that will drop is the gear change guide, which wears and erodes and causes empty shifts without engagement of the gears. At this time, I will carry out a repair and I will replace the bushings with bearings, and I will maintain the transmission with good lubrication. You don't have to buy those expensive metal drive shaft set for a price of $16. Instead, use a stock plastic one that have metal ball link. They are strong enough for this configuration. However, a modification is necessary for it to work. We will address this problem later. A set of a stock drive shaft goes for $422. They have the same length front and rear. I really like this Hobby Plus CR24 platform for the 1/24 scale crawlers. When we have the opportunity to work on the FMS and EZRC models, we quickly notice that the design and manufacturing of the parts is identical, which suggests that there is one company at the origin of all these brands. For example, they share the same suspension links and shocks mounting system using a double stud ball. It's a bit like the Volkswagen Group, Audi, and Porsche. The parts are interchangeable between models and allow a lot of adaptation regarding the modification of wheelbase and transmissions, except for the FCX range, which has a different chassis and skid plate. What I also like is the electronic mount and the body mount parts, which allows a great flexibility in positioning and for adapting bodies. I use this graphite grease because it's the only one I have at the moment. It is recommended for differential gears, but this is not the case for our axles. It is preferable to use a thicker all-purpose grease than the one I used. We use Hobby Plus CR24 parts, mainly for the crawler built from scratch for the 1/24 and 1/18 scales. The reason for choice is justified by the experience that we have accumulated using parts from this brand. We built the equivalent of 8 cars using CR24 and CR18 chassis and axles. The axles are not perfect, but you can buy a front and rear axles for less than $16. You can't find a better deal. However, no part is perfect. Who never broke the CVDs of a SCX24? We can install $80 axles on our cars, but they will break and wear out the same. We use our vehicle on rocks, mud, and we make them swing on all sides. All the parts twist and break, as a result, to consecutive shocks. With cheap parts, you can build up a small stock, and in this case, when it breaks, no waiting for the delivery of parts. The repair is immediate and not too painful. Even during your crawling sessions, you go there, frankly, without reservation, and without the conservative spirit that haunts you for fear of breaking or scratching beautiful and shiny pieces. With inexpensive parts, we can build up stock. Also, this allows us to start several projects while having interchangeable parts. the parts that are of very good quality, very pretty and shiny, and often excessively expensive, do not often have a noticeable impact on performance. For crawling, what matters is the distribution of masses and the electronics. What make a crawler perform is nice ESC with good modulation, a balance between the motor and the gearing, a strong steering servo, and the neglected of all is the adequate tightening of the screws. We prefer to invest in durable parts like the rims, the tires, the shocks, the ESC, the gearbox, and generally it is these parts that make the crawler. I talk a lot about cheap parts for this project. That doesn't mean our build is low cost. We have included a huge number of high performance and good quality parts. Cheap parts are limited to the chassis, axles, suspension arms, which are the original parts of the Cr-24. Moreover, the Cr-24 platform is the only one that can accept the MiniZ body. Without the Cr-24 running gear and chassis, this mode is unrealizable. For example, we can adapt the SCX-24 platform to the MiniZ body and keeping the scale look of the rig. Effectively, the axles of the axial are too wide, and the smallest wheelbase of the SCX-24 is 133 millimeters. In any case, the Cr-24 parts are equivalent to the original MiniZ 4x4 parts, except that the MiniZ offers fewer options. The model does not use 7mm hex, and to install aftermarket rims, you need an adapter. The MiniZ works with 4 AA battery, unlike our crawler, which runs on 2S LiPo. In the end, our Jeep will cost a little more than the RTR from MiniZ. However, it will be fully modded and very efficient with a platform that accepts a large number of aftermarket parts, without forgetting that it will have a 2-speed transmission, something that the original chassis of the MiniZ will never be able to receive. And this is the whole point of our build. For the steering, I used an Emax analog servo that I bought in sets of 4 for $25 or $625 each on AliExpress. To mount the servo on axle, I used 2 parts. First is the FCX-24 servo mount that hold the servo, and the second is a homemade part that is an extension for the FCX-24 servo mount, mounted on the axle housing allowing to raise the steering servo. The combination of these 2 parts is necessary to be able to install the steering servo on the front axle, because I had to face 2 problems. First, the servo must be installed high enough to allow clearance with the steering link, then it must be as far back as possible, to not exceed the short hood of the car, which is aesthetically unacceptable, and will also stop the contraction of the shocks, because all the front axle will be stopped in its movement by the bumper and the front grille of the car. The homemade plastic piece of ABS solved the height problem, and its installation at the rear of the axle housing solved the second problem. For the servo horn, the price is $1.25 each. The same as the servo, I bought it from the land of the rising sun. For cheap and for performance purpose, I decided to exchange the black servo horn with the red one for more horsepower. As you can see, the drive shafts are too long, it will cause a massive binding. Also, after measuring them, I noticed that they are longer than the stock drive shaft. I didn't understand anything about the Hobby Plus upgrade parts for Cr-24, which do not correspond to the original measurements. After trying them on an original Cr-24, they are too long and cause binding too. My solution was to use stock drive shafts. On the front part of the car, they work perfect without any modification. But it's another story for the rear. Actually, they had to be shortened by a few millimeters for it to work. The advantage with plastic is that this type of rectification does not cause any problem. A cutter does the trick to reduce the drive shaft by 4 millimeters. After assembling and filling the shock absorbers with oil, I reduced the length of the shock absorber mounting points to have the straightest and closest angle to the chassis. The tires installed are 4 millimeters wider than the original Cr-24 tires. This eliminates or reduces the friction of the tires against the shock absorber springs during wide steering. For the Cr-24 chassis and axles, all shock absorbers provided for the FMS FCX24 are applicable. In our other builds, we use shocks from Injora, Batrazi, and other cheap generic shock absorbers that we buy on Chinese websites. Even in one of our built, we installed shocks from Injora designed for TRX4M with a length of 59 millimeters, video that you will see soon on our channel. Injora 39 grams for each brass wheels for a price of $28.99. 4 boom racing tires 48.5 by 19 millimeter for a price of $18. I carefully looked for tires larger than those of the Cr-24 with 46.5 millimeters diameter, which can only be fitted on the Cr-24 original beadlock. Also, I didn't want a too big tire, which would spoil the scale look of the vehicle. That's why I chose those boom racing tires with a diameter of 48.5 millimeters, which seem to be good quality. When they are placed next to the tire of the MiniZ, they look huge. Rims are more than an improvement. They are important for the weight balance of the vehicle. Indeed, the gearbox and servo shifting have raised the car's center of gravity. For the Cr-24, the only way to balance the weight can be at the wheels, because the options are non-existent for this model. The only brass axles, housing, and knuckles that I found for the Cr-24 cost the price of this build. The Injora rims weigh 39 grams per rim for a total weight of 156 grams, without the tires at the lowest level of the vehicle. With the chassis and running gear installed, we shake the little beast to see if everything is flexed correctly, if there is no friction, and if the suspension moves freely. Now it's time to take care of the ESC. We chose the FMS Fly Sky R4A1 V3 that bind with RX transmitter. We use a lot of Fly Sky designed for FMS to build our 124 and 118 scale vehicles, so we stay on the same system and avoid having a large number of transmitters and receivers. We buy them for $14.89. Before installing it on the crawler, we will make it waterproof by applying an electrical silicone sealant intended for this purpose. We apply 1 layer per side, respecting a drying time between layers. The Cr-24 chassis is perfect for die-cast builds based on Motormax, Jada, or Revel type bodies. This is due to the 120mm wheelbase, and which can be increased to 123mm by using the Cr18 front suspension links at the rear of Cr-24 chassis. You can also make the Cr-24 wheelbase 126mm by using 2 times the front Cr18 links. Of course, when you change the links, you install the drive shaft that goes with it. To connect the body to the chassis, we used magnets. We mount them on the stock Cr-24 body post mount using an M3 hex flathead spacer screw kit. The kit provides several lengths, allowing us to adjust until the ideal height is obtained. Usually, I use 2 magnets at the front and 2 at the rear. With 4 magnets every time I lifted the vehicle holding it by the body, I lost the chassis in the air, which fell to the ground. To avoid this, it took 4 magnets at the front and 3 at the rear. To mount all these magnets, we made supports with ABS plastic as usual, and we took the opportunity to make a support for the ESC right on the motor. Maybe the magnets that I have are weak, but when you think about it, the body weighs 71 grams compared to 478 grams for the chassis battery included, so the magnets have the heavy task of holding a ½ kilo. We will later use these magnets as an electricity conductor for the installation of the lighting, so they will have a dual function and will save us from having to plug and unplug the electrical connectors each time we lift the body. For more weight at the front of the vehicle, the only space available was on the steering servo, so I stuck 2 weights intended for the inside of the rims of 1/10 scale vehicle from Boom Racing. Each weight weighs 6.5 grams. Later, I managed to place 3 for a total weight of 19.5 grams. I glued them using a Tamiya instant glue. I created an opening on the battery tray. To glue the on-off switch button, I used Tamiya instant glue to make it stay there forever. This location at the rear of the vehicle is very accessible and allows the vehicle to be turned off and on easily while having a clean and aesthetic installation. I installed the rear bumper using the Cr-24 mount with some spacers. For the front bumper, I used the Provide parts that comes with the body kit with some adaptations. Even if the steering servo is installed far back, still, I had to make a cut on the front bumper to make some room for the servo horn. The cost of the project is as follows. MiniZ 4x4, Jeep Wrangler purchased for $55.99. We purchased this body from A Main Hobby, FMS R4A1. Transmitter receiver set, V5 for $29.99. The same ESC installed on FCX18 LC80, T-Hunter Evo, 2-speed gearbox kit for $28.99. The ESC and the gearbox were purchased from Fair RC, Injora, 39 grams, brass rims, set of 4 for $28.99. Injora aluminum 45mm FCX24 oil-filled shocks for $17.99. All Injora parts were purchased directly from their website. Cr-24 axles metal gear, set for $16.99. Total of the other parts is $47.30. All the Hobby Plus and Boom Racing parts was purchased from Asia Tees. We got a grand total of $226.24. This cost does not include glue, magnets, ABS plastic, grease, and bearings. Also, the labor and time spent on the build is not taken into account, because this is where we experience the most pleasure. The second gear allows the little beast to have good trailing abilities. The little Jeep keeps up with the FCX18, whose engine is 180. This way, the little MiniZ can leave the shelf and indoor course to venture into the great outdoors. The following crawling session closes this video, giving you an idea of the capabilities of this little crawler. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed what you saw and want to stay updated with all our upcoming content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and ring the notification bell. This way, you'll be the first to know when we drop new videos. Your support means the world to us, and we can't wait to share more exciting content with you. So, subscribe, like, and ring that bell. See you in the next one.